I'm Laura, for anyone who doesn't know, and today I'm going to be attempting to do a video review of The Oathbreaker Shadow by Amy McCulloch. So I started reading this for a couple of reasons. The first time I became aware of Amy McCulloch, it was because her new book, the sequel to this, is coming out, and the cover got posted on Fantasy Faction website, I think it was, and it's a gorgeous cover. It's quite similar to this one. I might post a link somewhere so you can see it, but it's got blue around the edges and there's another girl in the cover as well. The cover attracted me and I read the synopsis and it looked great, so I put it on my to read at some point in the future list. And then I got tickets to go to London Film and Comic Con, which I also found out had a YA LitCon going on at the same time, and Amy McCulloch was going to be there. So I bought the book straight away so I could get it signed by her, and decided to read it quickly so I'd actually have something to discuss about the book when I met her. In the land of Darhan, promises are bound by magic, tied into knots and worn with pride. Those who break them are physically scarred, cast out into the deadly desert and tormented by vengeful shadows of their treachery. It is the best day of Raim's life. As he enters the elite young guard and prepares to dedicate his life to the protection of the future Khan, he knows that he must honour his word until the day he dies. But then he accidentally breaks a promise he has worn since the day he was born and has no memory of making. With the dark mark of an Oathbreaker seared into his skin, he is forced into exile. So I read this book in 3 days. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. The world building is fantastic. Just in the first few pages, although it's not directly about Raim, it's him watching as 2 young boys make a promise, and then one of them breaks the promise. And it shows how children taught the significance of promises, and it gives a really good insight into how much Amy McCulloch has developed this world, right down to how children act about promises, how it's so ingrained into their culture. One of the things I liked the most about this book was the setting. It is not your traditional fantasy westernised setting at all, medieval Europe. It is set in a desert. When the story starts, you can tell from the description that something bad has coming for Raim. It's all building up towards his initiation into the Young Guard, and you know from the description that it's going to go wrong. He's one of the best fighters. He got a bit of luck when he was younger by becoming friends with the prince of their country, and that meant that he was actually able to train to join the Young Guard. So he breaks his promise, although he doesn't know what it is, and he has to run away. For a little bit at the start of the story, there's some telling instead of showing, which I did notice, but to be honest I wasn't that bothered by it because it's actually interesting what's being told, introducing you to the world of Raim and how everything works, because it is quite different to any other world that you see in normal fantasy stories. The only other thing I can think of that annoyed me about the book is that there are a few characters who know things who then don't tell Raim, and they do have their reasons, which are explained to some degree in the book itself. It's just a little pet peeve of mine that you have characters who know things and then don't tell the main character who needs to know those things. And it's the first in 2 books, and it ends quite satisfying. It's on somewhat of a cliffhanger, but it's still a definite end to this part of the book. There are questions unanswered, for instance what Raim's promise that he broke actually was, although you do find out some more details about it and how he's had it since he was before he can remember. And also Kara, if you pronounce his name like that, I'm not sure. He is Raim's best friend, the prince, and from what I've seen of the description for the next book, his character looks as though it has quite a bit of development in the next book, which I'm looking forward to, because I wish there was a little more of that in this book, or more explanation for it at least. So overall, it's a good adventure story in one of the best fantasy settings I've read in quite a while. It looks gorgeous, like look at it. And I'll definitely be reading the next book. The next book I'll be reading is Take Back the Skies by Lucy Saxon. It's another author who's at YALC, or YALC, as I've heard some people describing it. Flying ships is what I've gathered so far. Flying ships and oppressive government. So depending on what I think of this, once I actually watch through it and decide whether or not to actually put it up on YouTube, I might do the same for this one as well. I'm doing this for a couple of reasons, one of which, since I've become published, I've found how valuable reviews are. Authors like reviews, so I'm trying to do that more from reading books, rather than just putting them back on my bookshelf when I'm finished. And second is that I recently had to do a video to promote my own book, and it was a disaster. The first take we had to start over because I ran out of words. I had no idea what to say. So I figure if I can talk about this book and maybe some other books in the future, okay, on video, then maybe I'll be better the next time I have to do that for my own book.